And for our next session, Red Lobster's response to the COVID pandemic. It will be presented by Rex Smith, Senior Director, Restaurant Systems, and Tony Goodman, App and IT Innovation Architect at Red Lobster. Shifting to off-premise has provided Red Lobster an opportunity to scale and enhance the guest experience for off-premise ordering channels. This session will review critical changes to Red Lobster's environment in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks, Tony and Rex. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And I'm Rex Smith. I'm Senior Director of Restaurant Systems at Red Lobster, and my team supports all the guest-facing technology that we're going to be talking about today, as well as all the systems and technology that are within the four walls of the restaurant. So like Kevin mentioned, our objective for today is basically to take a look at the last year at Red Lobster, literally the good, bad, and the ugly. We're going to look specifically at our digital platform, the underlying technologies of the environment, as well as some of the struggles that we've seen and some of the accomplishments that we've had to help Red Lobster's business. We'll probably go 25 minutes maybe, and then we'll have plenty of time to get into some discussion at the end. So if you have questions, you can fill up the chat, or we can go back and revisit some of these slides if you want to. There's a lot of detail on some of them. First thing, I want to introduce the Red Lobster team. Tony Goodman, he was the architect behind the digital platform environment, and he'll be sharing some insights into our architecture and scalability today. Carlo Roncallo is on the phone, on the call. He's manages our e-commerce and digital platform area. Kelly Kenson is manager of restaurant systems and our integration platform. All those areas are key to everything that we're talking about today. And then Lou Grandy is CIO of IT. And Lou's been instrumental over the last year to gain alignment with our executive teams as we've pivoted and reacted quickly, pretty much on a daily or weekly basis throughout the last year. So as our restaurants and dining rooms started to close, we quickly pivoted to off-premise, and our off-premise business spiked significantly throughout the pandemic. Really, we categorize off-premise into four main areas. We have walk-in guests that just come and walk in, order, and then wait for the food to be prepared, pay, and leave. That's about 10% of the orders that we see. We have third-party delivery services. That's about a third of the orders that come in, and we're integrated with all the major players in the US and Canada, Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Postmates. Roughly 20% of the orders are taken through the phone. Those are called into a call center, which we outsource to third-party agents. And interestingly, as we got into the pandemic and were forced to furlough some employees, we were able to transition those employees to become call center agents to take orders over the phone. And that just worked really well for both the employee and for the guest, because they were obviously individuals that knew the brand and the menu well. And then our main primary platform is the redlobster.com website. It can be launched from the app on mobile or on the web. And we're partnered with Olo. We host the front end of the website, and then we have APIs into the Olo backend, and we'll go into more detail on that. When the pandemic hit, our operations marketing teams worked quickly through a number of initiatives that are listed here on the left side. Really menu innovations, focusing on items that travel well for takeout, the party platters, the date night deals that where we pair menu items together with sides and drinks. We created weekday wins to help with our weekday business. So it's just a promotion on each day of the week to drive weekday business. We worked through several different packaging solutions to look for smarter sizes and better maximization of the use of containers. We rolled out Rapid Curbside, which is basically a touchless experience where the guest stays in the car and we have a server that's available to bring the food out to them. And then we had a lot of incentives that were primarily driven from our loyalty program, things like double points for takeout orders, new rewards and incentives. We offered free delivery on the website, so it would encourage guests to visit our website to place delivery orders that are fulfilled through DoorDash, as opposed to going to the third-party delivery sites. And then a lot of technology upgrades, which I'm going to get into here shortly. But all that didn't happen without some significant issues. We really saw unprecedented demand across the entire system, putting stress at all the touch points. We did certainly experience some OLO outages and disruptions at critical business times that had a negative impact on our business. We experienced some outages. We're on the OLO APIs, so we did experience some outages that impacted the APIs, but then we also saw that there were other restaurant companies with their white label website that were still available for ordering. So just worked with OLO through some disruption there. The third-party delivery platforms had some issues, both technology related, outages, driver shortages. We had, because of all the local governments issuing shutdowns and restaurant closures, dining room closures, curfews, just a constant stream of activity to make sure that we get the restaurants' hours and whether or not they're open updated on the website and communicate that to guests. Obviously, it's very frustrating for guests to drive out to the restaurant, find out that they're not open for the dining room isn't open anymore. So we definitely had some learning curve there to get everything updated correctly, and we've got a lot of processes. We're still going through it today. So there was just a batch of restaurant openings actually that came through today, and we've got a lot of processes in place now around that. And then we did encounter capacity issues on our own website. Some of those were related to the technology, some related to throttling. Because of the way that we are set up on OLO, we are not able to throttle orders across channels. So we cannot deliver an accurate quote time across all the different ordering channels that we have across delivery, the call center, and the website orders. So we had major issues on Mother's Day last year, just as one big example, where we just had no ability to throttle orders. Restaurants were being bombarded with orders. We were communicating inaccurate quote times, and in some cases they weren't able to fulfill the orders at all, which obviously caused a lot of frustration and took us a long time to recover. I do have a picture of one restaurant. This was Mother's Day, and you can see the complete chaos of people picking up orders. This is a restaurant where the dining room was closed, and I have no idea how Bernie got in there. Since then, we've put in some standard operating procedures so that our operations teams can disable or pause ordering by channel. So if they do get into the weeds in a particular restaurant, they're instructed to shut down delivery first, just because that's the highest cost channel for us, and then they can shut down the website as well as the call center and just completely stop orders if they want to, if they're that backed up. I want to just go into some specific changes that we made to the website throughout the last year. Really, when we ended 2019 and into January and February, we had just replatformed our website to get off of the OLO front end and develop our own custom ordering experience. So that relieved us from some of the OLO constraints and allowed us to create this universal login, which is one login across the app, the website, Presto in the restaurant, and the loyalty program. So really was a big step forward for us because we were able to interact with the guest across all those channels consistently with just one login. Also in that January, February timeframe, we had finished our integration directly to all the delivery partners. So we no longer had tablets in the restaurant, and that was a key to the shift to off-premise. Also, we did when we had the tablets, we did see issues with the management and the staff accepting the orders. They have the time limit to accept the orders. If you don't accept them, then you'll end up getting shut off. And we did have a lot of instances of that. So being able to automate that integration and automatically accept the order has made things run significantly more smoothly with the delivery partners. In February, we added tiers to the loyalty program. And then in March, when COVID-19 hit, we really focused on updates on our website just to communicate with guests what actions were taken, what safety precautions, what restaurants are closed and open. We also, around that time, we added beer and wine as a category available online, which we previously had not sold those for off-premise sales before. In April, we started to scale back the menu, added disclaimers and around product availability and supply chain disruptions. We added a new delivery partner in Canada to help the Canadian business, as most of the restaurants, dining rooms there were shut down. We also enabled online payments in Canada and got the certification. And around that same time, we started to default to pay online for all of our orders, for in whatever markets we could, just to help to minimize the touches and when people come to pick up food in the restaurant. Starting in May and really throughout the rest of the year, as I mentioned, just this constant churn of closed restaurants, opening restaurants, closed dining rooms, opening dining rooms, trying to do outdoor dining where we could, curbside pickup. We ended up creating hours for our regular restaurant operations hours, and then we have separate hours for delivery. We have separate hours for curbside pickup, and so all those are maintained separately, where they didn't really exist before we got into this. Also in May, we changed the order flow and for pickup and delivery. So we did see that we were having people who were trying to get delivery orders, and they would enter their address, get their cart full, and then realize that they weren't within the delivery radius of the restaurant. So we moved all that information up front, where if it's delivery, you make sure and validate the restaurant. If the restaurant's opened or closed, that's all validated up front. We enabled Presto for takeout orders, so that guests that had not paid online could use Presto and redeem loyalty when they're in the restaurant. Again, just another move to reduce the number of touches, taking credit cards and things. The customer could pay on the Presto device all by themselves. We also found that Presto, just depending on the restaurant and the Wi-Fi, in some cases, Presto could work a little bit outside the restaurant. So so they could take it out to curbside or even in outdoor dining areas. We enabled gift card payments online, which was a big win. We had a lot of customers that were holding gift cards and they couldn't come to the restaurant to redeem them. So we did end up enabling enabling gift cards online. In September, we shifted to Rapid Red, which is basically what we call staffing for curbside and touchless curbside experience. That created the demand for payment. So when customers did not pay online and were picking up the food at their car, we rolled out, this is still in pilot. We have it in 40 restaurants now. It's a mobile pay solution. It's a mobile pay website where it's really easy for the customer to use. They basically just scan a QR code on their receipt, which launches a website with their check on it. And then they can pay using Apple Pay, Google Pay. They can enter credit card information. They can tip right there on the website and complete their whole payment process right there from their car. We still have that in a 40 restaurant test, and we're just kind of reading the results of that. In November, we opened up our first ghost kitchen. That was a unique experience in and of itself. We ended up not putting a POS in the ghost kitchen. And so there's definitely a lot of manual workarounds and things that if we end up growing and expanding to others, we're gonna definitely want to automate. In December, we rolled out curbside check-in and surveys. We did, over the course of the last year, we have tested and piloted several curbside check-in solutions. We had tablets, we had watches. We ended up going with a solution where we text the guest when we receive their order. They text back the word "here" when they arrive, and that pops a message on the KDS screen in the alley where someone in the restaurant that's working the alley can acknowledge the text on the screen, and it sends a text message back to the guest to basically say, we'll be out with your food shortly. So far, that's been very successful. When we rolled it out, we've seen significant benefits, including more customers moving to curbside, which was part of the goal of the project, but also really higher ratings on our COVID standards and safety, that customers just feel safety with that solution because they can stay in their car. We don't have a solution yet for delivery drivers, so that's kind of something that we're going to tackle next, is how to get the delivery drivers to check in when they arrive. And real quick, last thing I wanted to cover is just quick high level of our environment, and then Tony's going to go into more detail on our architecture. But basically, starting on the left side, the guests interact with us through one of these ways. We host the front end of the website in the Azure environment, and we built APIs into Olo for all the functions listed in blue there. The cart, pricing, menus, all the images that display, and then they process the payment. DoorDash and Postmates run through Olo Rails. Our call center the call center agents use the switchboard, which then moves the orders into the restaurant POS through our integration platform. We do have dispatch with DoorDash, so delivery orders placed on our website using DoorDash for delivery. And then through our integration platform, we have a direct integration to Grubhub and Uber Eats, where those orders are flowing. We use MuleSoft as our integration platform to orchestrate all the orders flowing into the restaurant's point of sale. So I am going to turn it over to Tony now, and he'll talk a little bit more about our environment and how it's hosted, as well as some improvements we've made over the last year.
Thanks, Rex. So I'm Tony Goodman. I'm responsible for innovation in application architecture and IT at Red Lobster. So this is a high-level diagram that is an overview of the systems and integrations for our digital platform. As Rex mentioned, we have a custom-built front end sits on top of Olo's web services to give our guests what we believe is a better user experience of what Olo delivered out of the box. So in the middle of the page, in sort of Azure blue, I have a diagram of the e-commerce solution. All the traffic comes into the Azure Traffic Manager, and then comes into the app gateway. And then based on if you want to see marketing material or ordering, that sends you over to the e-commerce application, or it sends you to the brand website. They are hosted as separate solutions. So moving over to the left a little bit, you'll see in AWS Orange, our integration platform is actually hosted in AWS and is responsible for the orchestration of orders from Olo into the point of sale, as well as updating menus, pricing, and availability. MuleSoft is also responsible for the orchestration of orders coming from Grubhub and Uber Eats into the point of sale. That's a direct integration. Sliding over to the left a little bit more, got the Red Lobster on-premise environment, shows restaurant information database where the hours of operation are, delivery hours, curbside hours, all the settings that Rex was talking about. It's all housed in that database. the point of sale, business intelligence system, menu system. And then you can see the integration with Olo at the top there, and their integration with DoorDash, Postmates. So those come through across their Rails integration into Olo, and then into MuleSoft, and finally into our proprietary point of sale system. Across the bottom, we just have tools that different systems are using. Rex called out the one login solution that we put in place that's hosted by Auth0. So they are our identity provider. We have a bunch of other tools in place like App Insights and Elasticsearch, which provide us insights, alerting, and monitoring for the platform. Next slide, please. Taking a while. I don't know if it's refreshed for anybody else. Okay. So this slide is sort of an illustration how the environments evolved during COVID and in response to COVID. So on the far left side is sort of our initial implementation, and this is a little bit of a drill down view in the Azure environment. So at the top of that box on the left, you see a user come in via a website. They hit the traffic manager. Traffic manager sends them over to the application gateway. The application gateway sends them into Azure App Services, which are sort of like an IaaS farm, to make an on-prem analogy. That initial implementation was on sort of a version 1 of Azure's hardware, and it allowed us a maximum of 10 servers. We did have 2 regions created, one in the east and one in South Central. But the South Central data center was really used just as a warm backup more than anything. And then moving over toward the middle. Rex, I think you went ahead a little bit. There you go. So moving over toward the middle is sort of our initial response to the increased traffic from COVID and the shutting down of the restaurants and the increased traffic from online ordering and delivery. So the real difference here is that in the Azure App Gateway, we made a change to also leverage the app services that were deployed in the South Central data center. So this doubled our available capacity from 10 website instances to 20. And then on the right side of the screen is an illustration of what the current architecture looks like. So we maintained the Azure App Gateway pointing to the other data center in the South Central region, but we upgraded the hardware to what Azure calls version 2, which again doubled the capacity to 40, and then we also implemented auto scaling. So Rex, I think you can go on now. So this is actually one of my favorite slides, because this is a really good illustration of the cost of the environment over the year. And so I ran this report from January through December, and so you can see sort of where we start off and kind of in the thick of things, and then what the current architecture looks like. So on our initial implementation pre-COVID, we designed an architecture that I described earlier that cost us about 2.5 cents per transaction on average between January 1st and January 10th of 2020. And then as we got into COVID and demand increased, we saw that we needed to increase resources in Azure. So we were able to quickly scale out those website instances, like I mentioned earlier, to meet demand, and it was actually fantastic. It worked fairly well. It got a little bit more expensive at about 4 cents a transaction, and during that time, we were taking about 4 times the number of transactions between May 1st and May 10th. So it's a great illustration of our ability to start handling that traffic, but the cost increase that goes along with that. After we were able to make some changes and handle the website traffic, we took a step back and tried to learn how we could continue to improve that environment. So we upgraded to version 2 of the hardware and then implemented some scheduled scaling and auto scaling. So the new version of the hardware actually gave us additional capacity and decreased the cost, because we were on older hardware at this time. The Azure cost was actually more expensive. So so now during the first 10 days in December, our hosting costs are about a little over a cent per transaction. I think we can go to the next slide. So this is a quick slide that just shows our scaling plan, and we really have it divided into 2 different schedules. We have a weekday schedule and a weekend schedule. And the differences really are that during the weekday, we run a minimum of 2 instances per region. And the weekend, we run a minimum of 5 instances per region. And then when we scale out during the weekday, if the CPU average goes above 50%, we start scaling out. And then on the weekend, if it goes above 60%, we scale out. We also have a scale in plan, so that when traffic decreases, then we'll start decreasing the number of website instances as well. And so the rules for that are that when the average CPU decreases by greater than or equal to 30%, and the HTTP queue length is less than 2, we'll go ahead and scale it down. So for those that aren't familiar with the HTTP queue length term, which is an Azure term, it's really just the average number of HTTP requests that are sitting in a queue before the application can process it. Next slide. So I think that covers it for the technical side of the presentation as well. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, I see a couple in chat. So could you explain third-party premium pricing? Rex, you want to take that, or you want me to take that?
I think I just replied in there, but yeah, one of them was around the delivery partners that we have. I can go back to I think that slide probably shows best the these are the primary delivery partners that we're integrated with. 2 of them, DoorDash and Postmates, go through Olo Rails platform, and then we're directly integrated with 2 others. We do have other delivery partners that are more, small and local that we work with, but those are the main national brands that we have. And then the third-party delivery premium pricing is just really a way for us to mark up pricing a little bit on those delivery channels. So since we built the integrations directly with them, we're able to just automate that as part of the feed and integration with them.
Yeah.
Hi,
and I'll just
may I ask one question? Thank you so much for sharing. I want to ask, for the Olo, they cannot integrate the other like Grubhub and Uber Eats. So that's why you have the 2 like a API like integrators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. We have that direct integration.
Will that create a troublesome for you? Because right now you are kind of running 2 gateway to connect to different API system. And then for the customers, would there be any different if they're coming from DoorDash, Postmate versus from Grubhub, Uber Eats? Or actually they are doing the same pricing, they use the same third-party pricing premium mechanism. And then if I'm the customer, can I just come in from your Red Lobster website?
Yeah. So it would be the same pricing across any of the delivery channels. We don't have anything unique among those 4 different channels. The pricing's the same, and we do have through Olo Dispatch, we have delivery available through our website. So customers can come directly to the Red Lobster website and order for delivery. It's fulfilled by Dispatch, but and through DoorDash. But that's really, we've tried heavily over the last year to incentivize guests to come to our website. They can actually redeem loyalty rewards on our website. So we have a loyalty program. They can come and log in, redeem and earn points too on their order if they do it directly from our website. And then we've offered incentives like free delivery and other incentives from ordering on our website.
Sure. If a customer coming from the Red Lobster website, and who do you ask to do delivery for you? DoorDash or Postmail? Or actually you have your own fleet to do delivery?
No, that's just DoorDash right now that we work with through Dispatch.
Okay.
Yeah, we only work with DoorDash for those coming in through our website.
Sure. Thank you so much for the sharing. Impressive. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just on the technical side, I didn't mention this earlier, but hosting in the cloud has really been able to has enabled us to be able to scale up quickly, and it cost us a little bit of money initially, but we were able to meet demand from the website. But it's been a huge advantage to meet that demand. I think it would have taken us exponentially longer to stand up servers in a data center. So I think that was a huge advantage. One thing that I didn't note either is that hosting in the cloud does require sort of a different skill set than hosting on-prem. In that, as I mentioned before, we were using version 1 of Azure's hardware, and over time that started to cost us more money, even without considering scaling up, because Azure has to maintain an older version of hardware, and they'd rather have you move over to newer hardware, and so they can decommission the old hardware. So it requires somebody to constantly optimize the environment, to take a look at the resources you're using, and to make sure it's still appropriate from the initial implementation, because it changes so frequently. It can drastically impact your budget.
I guess one question for the group, for anybody that's on Olo, either through their APIs or through their white label app, just curious if you guys did experience, I think probably in like the April timeframe, if you experienced some outages that seem to occur at pretty peak times, Friday nights and Saturday nights.
Hey Rex, John Doyle here. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, yes, good to see you.
Yes, we're on Olo. We're integrated through to APIs for all of the major delivery service providers, with the exception of our friends at Grubhub. And yes, we've had a couple of outages here since COVID began. Nothing too bad, but obviously in this new COVID business model where so much of your sales are reliant on delivery service providers, even an outage of a couple of hours on a Friday night can make a material impact to sales.
Rex, question regards to cloud costs. So, after your initial spike in your one slide, the cost savings that you were able to realize, is that based on the rules that you put in place just to manage the usage based on volume?
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, it was both. The initial implementation of the website, we rolled out, back-end hardware. You get to choose the hardware when you host it in Azure. So at the time, we chose something current, but then over time, that becomes more expensive. And Azure charges you more money to host older hardware. So it was a combination of that, and then the scheduled and auto scaling. So I would say the more significant part of that cost savings came from scaling itself, because in May we basically increased the capacity as much as possible, and that's as much as, I mean, that's the same strategy you would do for an on-prem environment. You would just build out as many servers as you possibly can to handle peak traffic. Now we're doing it a little smarter. We're scheduling, the scale out, and then we're allowing auto scale out to scale the website too. So it's both, but I'd say the more impactful one is scaling.
Yeah, the dynamic nature of the scaling model that they were able to deploy just allows us to have the resources when we need it, but then shuts everything down when we don't, as opposed to just paying for, peak demand. I mean, that peak in May was Mother's Day, right? So when we were having trouble with either the DSP platforms with capacity, Olo had a couple of outages because they were trying to stay ahead of the curve. In that really early April, well, really the whole month of April, we were working on scaling out our environment the same way I think they were working on scaling out their environments. And then we got to Mother's Day and all hell broke loose. And then that drop off was just because the demand was dropping off, off of Mother's Day. But the significant cost saves really is that's the dynamic environment. We monitor it, but we're not like turning it up and turning it down. As opposed to our development environments where we ask the developers turn off environments that you're not using instead of just leaving them always on. This is more dynamic in a production environment.
Yeah.
I listened.
You have to actively manage sprawl in the cloud environment for sure. Constantly cleaning up.
I was that spooky person that said administrator on my phone as I was driving in the car, but this is a great presentation. Lou and team, you guys did a great job, and Rex. I agree with what you're saying about it's a different people set that you need to start bringing in. We had to do the same thing. But I'm very lucky that my ex-husband works for Google, and I've been hearing all these problems for a long time as they implement partners on some bigger companies about how they have to go up and down and to save money, and they really have to automate. It's almost like an entirely new systems administrator role that has to be there because the money is so intense. But you want the flexibility. You want to be able to scale up. So it's a great presentation. I just have to tell you that again.
Yeah, and it's a little surprising how quick things change in the cloud. They can offer new services and new versions of the hardware and charge less for it. So it's really a re-optimization effort that is continuous. You have to keep reevaluating to make sure that you're optimizing costs as much as possible.
I mean, are there any other? I mean, as far as this being just sort of Q&A, open dialogue, are there any other issues that any of you experienced, or anything of significance that you've done to manage the demand? Because I mean, we're all seeing 3-4x demand on to go, right?
Yes and no. I mean, because we have drive-throughs, we didn't, right? It went up, right? But it wasn't like what you guys had. And then we were having trouble because for a long time our dining rooms were closed and drivers not getting into them. And, it was just awkward in QSR, maybe a little bit awkward compared to what you guys, were doing so much with delivery. But we still are at the point where you are, which is I like to directly integrate because we have the integration going on from the partners, the delivery partners, we use it to Checkmate into our systems, but it's doing delivery as a service in our own website and app that we're working on right now. And that's why I asked that question of the tech listserv, because I really don't want to use a partner. I want to be able to just do it, right? And I know you guys used Rails. We've looked at Rails many times. Did you look at the idea of doing it yourself, that last integration?
Yeah, and we still are. I think Rails with DoorDash and Postmates were the first ones we had up, and then we got Grubhub and Uber Eats integrated after them. So I think now next at some point in the future we'll be looking to migrate those to a direct integration as well.
Any tips that you can give us in that area as we head towards the end of the year?
Yeah, Tony, Kelly, I don't know if you have anything on the integrations with Grubhub and Uber Eats to.
Well, I was just gonna, yeah, maybe Aunt Kelly probably is chiming with the same thing. I was just going to mention that I know we had some heartburn around documentation and sort of conforming to the partners' APIs, and things change and they're not well documented. So that causes a little bit of churn and a little bit of back and forth because the implementation isn't exactly the way it was written. So a little of that. Kelly, do you have anything?
You kind of hit on it. I mean, just making sure from the business side that, how, taxes and the different fees, where they come from. Most of these integrations are set up to come directly from the point of sale, where our integration does not come from the point of sale. We come from our own menu system or get the data in a Azure blob and then send it up through our integration platform. So one, that's a luxury for us, but then it was also, a little bit of a pain point because that's not how all the specs were set up that we received, and we had to do our own development to make that work. But we had the resources to do that.
We have the state. We have our own menu management system as well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, we have our data is set up for us. It's set up for a certain way, and sort of Uber Eats had their own way that they thought about it and implemented it, and Grubhub did their own thing as well. So we spent time to make sure our data was in a form that they could accept, and it's a little different. Everybody does it a little differently.
Yeah, and hopefully, if you do get into it, getting involved with one of these partners, with Grubhub for us, that's when I think Level Up came in, and they basically changed everything they were doing. So we had an interruption right in the middle of the project that caused us a lot of extra work. So as these companies acquire other ones, that could just be an obstacle that you have to, overcome during your project.
Yeah, Lee, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I actually have one question. I'm running around 2.5 million single Chinese restaurants. Right now, I have 6 iPad on my screen, and then 4 American companies do delivery, and 2 is Chinese restaurant delivery guy. So right now, I've become very challenging to key in on my POS system because I need to every day rekeying from the different pads and manual keying to my POS. So I'm wondering, also I'm too small. I try to talk to Olo, they feel I'm too small. But my question is, for a lot of independent restaurant, how should we do? I feel right now we try to pick up the industry trend about transformation, but the challenge is price, and not only the resource and timing, also the money, also talent. And in our store, I share them how to run it, they feel very challenging. So I want to learn your experience. Number one, the POS, how do you integrate? Because right now I don't know, there's no solution for independent restaurant people were willing to do for you. Number two, for independent, where should they start? Look at you, you can transform very quickly given your big investment in your team, in your budget. But for an independent restaurant like us, what should we do? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess we'll put that out to the group. Any
What POS do you use?
I use a Chinese restaurant called Menu Seafood. They are in New York. Yeah, so only by that my team member can read Chinese. They don't know English at all. Yeah.
Wow.
That's all the challenging part. Yeah.
That's challenging. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can look at some of the smaller integrators. We can give you some names. They don't always have time to do is there a market for the system you use other places besides in the New York area?
No, I'm in Irvine, Los Angeles, South.
Oh, okay.
But many cities, I think they have around 6,000 stores, but most of them are Chinese ethnic restaurants. And then they can do double buy, so they can do Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. But That's a lot of people use them because they are targeting ethnic restaurant group. Yeah.
So if there's a way
Hey,
that,
Tony, question, does MuleSoft have like a PaaS service for somebody who, doesn't want to build out their own environment?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a little bit of a blend, right? MuleSoft hosts for us, but they don't offer anything off the shelf to do that integration. You have to build all the microservices yourself. The integrator solution is the only thing I can think of. I would maybe start with the point of sale themselves and ask if they can recommend somebody. Maybe they're already working with somebody. I don't know.
I mean, I think you're right, but I think you should just go to point of sale and say, can you get enough users together that we can go to somebody like It's a Checkmate and make a case for them doing the integration?
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Susan. Thank you.
So we got a few other things here. There's a question here about whether or not we're going to go to a new version of the scaling environment. And then James is asking about Throttle. So, I mean, do we have a minute to let the guys address those questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Tony, why don't you talk about, because we have talked about now sort of a version 3 of the environment.
Yeah, it's funny because we were just sort of reviewing the environment a couple of months ago, and Azure's already releasing new versions of the hardware. It is more performant and costs less. So I think we are going to have to take a look at that. Updating the environment, that constant evaluation to make sure that we're on the right version of hardware, to make sure that we're scaling the environment properly. So I think it'll be a constant reevaluation.
And then Rex, do you want to talk a little bit about our throttling strategy?
Yeah, and really, I think I mentioned that we can throttle by the way that we're set up in Olo. We throttle by channel, so our delivery orders can be throttled. Our call center orders can be throttled, and then the orders coming in off the website can be throttled. But we don't throttle across all those channels holistically. So that's something we're still working on, and that's sort of a goal that we have to be able to do that. In the interim, as the restaurant starts to get into the weeds, as they get backed up, if they're understaffed, our operations team can start to shut down channels or pause the orders coming in off of delivery first, and then they can pause orders coming in off the website. They can pause the call center if they need to, so they can kind of stop or pause orders as they need to across all those channels, just to give the restaurant a break if they're getting behind.
And the logic behind that really is we go to the more higher cost channels. So, our margins are smaller for Grubhub, Uber. And so we can shut those down individually. Obviously, if we shut down Dispatch, we're shutting down both Postmates and Grubhub. But if you've got enough orders coming in from the other channels, and on like Mother's Day, when you've got so many people standing around in your parking lot, you really don't need delivery service drivers driving around your parking lots and adding to the crowd. And theoretically, while you want those sales, the facility can't really handle that much demand. I mean, certainly the systems can throw way more demand at them than they can service. And I think all of us learned a little bit about that on Mother's Day. It was sort of an industry-wide issue. So the next most expensive channel for us is what? Dispatch. Dispatch, which would be our own delivery through DoorDash. And then as a last resort, we would shut down the call center. But shutting down the call center is really very, very difficult for us. So while we have the capability, I don't think we recommend that at all. It'd be easier for us to shut down the e-commerce site really than it would be to shut down call centers. Is that not right, Rex?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I'm getting pinged that it's time to I think take a break. We're maybe a little bit behind. Kevin, is that right?
Yeah, it's time to make a shift, because we've got the next set are going to be a little bit unique. But let me thank you for the dialogue. Again, love the questions and the conversation. I believe Rex and Tony, your information is was in the presentation. If anyone wanted to reach out, or certainly the
Certainly.
listserv is a method for answering questions beyond today. So thanks, guys. Fantastic job, and love what you're doing to handle the shifts and changes that are going on out there. Next, we've got 3 simultaneous presentations. Let's see. So you can choose between COVID-19 compliance and IT issues, or fast casual considerations,